well, we'll get started. All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Folsom Public Library's Community Chat. Today we have Robyn Geiser, who's the housing director for the Cozad Development Corporation and the Gothenburg
Improvement Company.
Thank you. Here today. We were supposed to have Tanya kick up, but she wasn't able to come. So Robyn is going to talk to us, and we're just going to have a chat about the importance of curb appeal. Absolutely. And how that ties into Cozad Pride.
Yes.
So thank you for coming.
Absolutely.
Robyn.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited. You were talking about your passion for the library, and obviously I know we share a passion for our community as well. And I think this ties right into that in a few different ways. So we're going to talk about the importance of curb appeal. I do have a little agenda. What I hope for us to accomplish today is why the first impressions matter, what we can do, what you can do to be a part of it, and a little bit more about I Love Cozad, period.
Oh, first of all, before you start, so can you give us a little intro about what I Love Cozad, period is?
So several months ago, I attended a civic pride, civic apathy presentation by Jeff Sigler, and he does Revitalize or Die. And there's a couple quotes in this presentation from him, but we spend a lot of time talking, and
yes, we do.
He is really more motivated by action. And after I came back from his presentation, again, it's one of those things that kind of lights that fire. And yep, I've done all of the things he said. I've sat in all of the meetings, we've planned, we've asked for permission. You know, it takes 6 months to, pick up trash on the side of a road. And it really shouldn't be that difficult. And we need to stop making it that difficult. And we need to start engaging more people in the process. And that's really what he is all about.
Awesome.
And so after I came back, Jen and I had had a conversation, Jen McKeown, the executive director for Cozad Development, about this. And NPPD was who hosted the conference that I went to and heard him. And then they decided to do a web series where we could invite others to listen to the same message I got when I went to his in-person meeting. And it just started that conversation again. And so we developed this I Love Cozad, period, and are really trying to do actionable things. Let other people see us doing it in hopes that it might motivate them to do it. And also, I think there are people out there doing it. We just do a poor job of acknowledging that. And that's one of the other things that I would like us to do a better job of, celebrating people who are out there in our community, making a difference in whatever small way that is. Because together those small things become bigger things. Yeah. And again, it all impacts like the landscape of our community. And again, in the development world, that matters in much bigger ways. And I think people
and that's
feel disconnected. Yes.
Awesome.
So curb appeal, oh, that doesn't show up well on this. Curb appeal refers to the visual attractiveness of someone's home, property, as seen by others, okay? And what we talk about, and this is out there all on the web, people make a first impression within the first 7 seconds. That's all it takes. So whether that's good or bad, that's what's lasting with them. Now, I know that we've talked a little bit about, before this presentation, about our hailstorm. And one of the things that I'll say, I think a silver lining to that hailstorm is there are improvements being made to our community that people might not have otherwise been able to make.
Opportunity.
Yes. And so there are some that, this has been very troublesome for, and financially it is a bigger burden for some, and we understand that. But I think also, let's not focus on that. Let's focus on the positive things and then find ways to address that so that, again, we can create better curb appeal for our entire community, whether that's the business district or our residential districts. So it also sets a tone for how people perceive the property, a neighborhood, a downtown. It affects home values and business values. So if you have a home that maybe is not showing well, trim needs painted, broken windows, those types of things, it's not going to have the same value as that exact same home that has been painted, that has, trash removed, bushes trimmed back, those types of things. So there are small things that people can do that make an impact. We'll talk about some of those.
And they don't have to be super expensive.
Absolutely not. No, and some of them might even be free. So we'll talk about that. And then also it impacts safety and perception of community pride. And community pride is a huge thing. I feel like there have been times in this community in particular that people have had a negative thought about it in comparison to other places that they've been, even neighboring communities. And some of that's just based on maybe unkept yards or an unkept home or business. We can change that very easily. And that's what we want to talk about, how we make a difference in that. Okay, I can't see that one either. That's okay. Coloring is a little bit more challenging on this. Okay, homes with high curb appeal sell 7 to 14% higher than others. Attractive businesses or attractive business districts attract more foot traffic and customers. Beautification increases tourism and community investment. And curb appeal increases community desirability, which influences business relocation decisions and population retention. So there are direct economic impacts to curb appeal. And what I like to say to people in regard to, say, Cozad Development and their ability to attract businesses to our community, a lot of times site selectors or businesses will come to our community unbeknownst to us. They come make their own visits. They don't tell anybody they're coming. And they do that to see how a community really looks. Because what they know of economic developers or community developers is we're gonna try to put it out there to the world, hey, we have someone coming, make sure everything looks as perfect as possible. And maybe those driving tours that you give, you drive not by certain areas that might need more improvement than others.
Sure.
So they know that about us. It's human nature. You always want to put your best foot forward. They know that. So that's why they sometimes will come in and not let anyone know they've been here. So these things matter to the economic impact, to the economics of our community when no one's looking.
Yeah, and I think that's great that you say that, because I think sometimes people get into that mindset. It's like, oh, what's the Economic Development Corporation doing? What are they doing? We need to do this. And well, we need to focus on the little things.
Yes.
And I heard a great quote the other day: if you're too big to do the little things, you're too little to do the big things.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was really
That
great thing.
it absolutely is. And there's so much truth in that. And again, it gets back to what can I do to make my community better? We always talk about the them. What are they doing? Why don't they do that? Why don't I do that? Why don't I do the things that I can do to make a difference in my community? And maybe we will see other things happen.
Yeah.
And I have said for years and years and years, if we want other people to invest in us, we have to invest in ourselves.
Yeah.
That's on a personal level, that's on a business level, that's in everything that we do. We can't ask others to invest in us if we aren't willing to invest in ourselves. So I think those are important things, and that's why I think people need to understand they all help us. They're all a part of the solution, and we just need to think about that we're all on the same team and trying to row our boat together. So curb appeal and community development, excuse me, signals vibrancy and care, attracts new residents and developers, reduces crime and increases safety perceptions, helps support housing programs and grants. So again, when we're applying for funds, they're asking all those questions. What have you done for yourself? How much money are you going to put into this equation? As to why they would, again, make their investments. When businesses are looking here to attract new employees, they drive around and look at our communities. They want to know that they're moving to a vibrant community, a safe community. And again, while it might not be 100% is safety and crime going down based on these investments, but it's a perception. When you see pride in a community, there's that sense of safety that comes along with it. So I do think that, again, this is a much bigger conversation than just that happens at City Council, at Cozad Development, at Cozad Library, wherever it is. At the coffee shop, absolutely. And one of the things that I think is so important is the psychological impacts that come along with this. It boosts pride. It boosts morale. I will tell you, I have always been a fairly positive person.
Yes, you have.
The hailstorm bothered me. Driving around in our community and seeing so many windows boarded up, it just made me feel sad and bad. And because it really was. And emotionally, there are people who that was going to be very difficult for. There were some that insurance was going to take care of, the largest majority, and they had the ability or funds to finish the rest and wasn't going to negatively impact them in a dramatic way. It impacted negatively to everybody. I don't want to say that, but there's a difference. There's a scale, right? There are some that they aren't going to come out of this. They don't have the financial capacity to fix what is broken right now.
But even for those of us who do, I mean, it's a year later.
Yes.
I still have broken windows.
Yes.
I still have siding. It's like,
this is not a fast process.
No.
And we have challenges in our life already that are impacting us. So you add one more thing. And if someone is already on a downward trajectory, not on a positive path, do we ever get that back? Are we ever able to kind of redirect where they're going? And so I think while I said there's a silver lining to those who can, and it does help, they get to see something new and fresh that they maybe wouldn't have been able to afford without the insurance proceeds. So there are some positives, but I do also think we need to acknowledge the negatives that we might still have to work through, even with the positive things that are going on. And again, clean, well-kept environments reduce stress. I went to a conference and they had a physician from Boston Medical that was the keynote. And she talked about the direct correlation between housing insecurity and health. And they did a study starting at age 3. These children had higher blood pressure than a typical 3-year-old based on the housing insecurity that they had. If it starts at age 3.
Is it just housing or is it food insecurity?
Food insecurity also. They were studying housing in this particular neighborhood, but I will tell you, those things are going to go hand in hand. If you have housing insecurity, I'm sure you have food insecurities as well.
Yeah.
And I think that is not the way we should be treating our children.
Yeah.
We have got to find a way to solve this, and some of that is going to come from much bigger funding mechanisms and sources than our community has. We will have to engage others. But again, if those are competitive grants that we're applying for, we have to be showing we're doing everything we can on a local level in order to get those federal and state dollars to come to our community to help us. So I believe everyone deserves a safe home, and that should not be a challenge in the way that it is right now. And so what can we do? What can we do to help that? And I think there's everyone in our community that can make an impact on that. Encourage neighbor engagement and upkeep. So I think it was maybe a year or so ago, you and I had a conversation, and what happened to neighbors helping neighbors? Someone had a neighbor that.
Oh, I know this conversation. I remember this conversation.
Yes, maybe their yard is looking a little bit disheveled and they were always good about caring for their yard. And instead of calling the city to complain to say the neighbor's yard is a disaster and needs to be mowed, why aren't we going to see what our neighbor needs? Why did they stop taking care of it? Are they having a health issue they aren't able to? Did they have a financial issue that their lawnmower broke and they don't have one and they're too embarrassed to ask? We don't know, but we've got to stop not being neighborly and be neighbors again. We live in a small community. We should be engaging with one another. We should be helping one another. That's one of the things I love so much about our community is if someone asks for help, typically the people line up to help them. We've seen it in, community benefits and things that have gone on. Why are we not still doing that, right next door to one another and extending that grace to one another? Because again, that one neighbor that is looking a little bit disheveled probably is feeling a little bit disheveled. And we might be able to do more than just mow their yard in making them feel good and know that they're still cared for and there's someone that has some concern for them. So I think there's lots of things that does by us just being a little more neighborly than we might be right now. Okay, so here's some key elements to this curb that we're talking about. Might be landscaping and greenery, clean sidewalks and signage, paint, siding and roofing, lighting and security, seasonal decorations, window displays for businesses. So I challenge you all to just stop it in your own mind. Think about any one of those things that you've noticed on a business or a home and you've gone, oh, that would have been easy to fix, or wow, that really looks amazing. Because I will tell you of one today. So I was driving to work this morning. I noticed Rustic and Red added some red, white, and blue buntings to their front porch. And some, I don't know what they're called, long banner flags, I guess if you will, on the front porch of Rustic and Red. And I thought, wow, that looks beautiful. And I know it's in celebration of 4th of July, as well as the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier display.
But also, like after 9/11, how many people put a flag out?
Yes.
And just the addition of the flag made so many neighborhoods look so nice.
Absolutely. There's something about it that it changes that perception. And it was something so easy. If you've walked by a neighborhood or a path and there's trash or rubbish or whatever, again, talking about the free things, if that's cleaned up, it changes how you feel about that. Maybe the house looks perfectly fine, but it gives you a feeling as you walk by.
Yeah. But even I know, like, if I'm mowing or if I'm taking trash out, if somebody's missed their receptacle, it doesn't take a lot just to pick that up and throw it away.
Right. And if you was driven by a house that just recently got their grass mowed, it looks better than it looked 30 minutes before, things like that make a difference. So sometimes when maybe they did get a little bit long, someone was on vacation and maybe didn't get their yard mowed at the regular schedule, it got a little longer. You come back and mow it. Yes, and you can't get it mowed. Absolutely. It's amazing how fast too weeds grow. Even if you've mowed, the weeds have a tendency to grow faster than anything else. It happens. But even those little things make a difference. And again, if you and I notice it, so does every visitor to our communities, okay? Now, again, back to that, have you ever made a judgment in a negative way based on how something looks?
For sure. I do it to the library. Weeds. I gotta go out and pull weeds.
And it's human nature. We all do it. So again, when someone comes to our community, how do we want them to feel about it? Maybe. Oh, there we go. Here are some. You can't read a single
something
tip.
above it?
Yes. Okay.
I see the white really well.
Yeah. Start with cleanliness
How about you?
and maintenance.
I can't really see.
Can you see the white?
A little bit.
Yeah, no, you can't hardly see that at all. Okay. Start with cleanliness and maintenance. So again, back to what's free. Curb appeal doesn't have to cost a lot. We can make an impact just picking up. And I bet it's happened to every one of us where something's been blown into our yard, thrown into our yard, just needs picked up. Maybe we haven't cleaned up the weeds around the bushes or, cleaned out the flower beds. It doesn't cost us anything, a little bit of work, but it makes a huge difference.
See, now you're gonna make me feel bad about all my weeds.
I didn't mean to.
I'm like, I don't think anybody can see them.
So removing, trash. Are there any broken branches? Because we've had storms and that kind of thing, and we've all seen that. Maybe there's a dead one in the tree and it hasn't come out yet, but after the wind this week, it's now laying in the yard. Just needs to be hauled away. That makes a difference, okay? I always love this time of year when people add fresh flowers, planters, that type of thing, a little bit of color. Fresh paint on the front door can go a long ways. Some of the things get a little bit harder. So I always say trim on a house, when it has gotten where it needs to be repainted, might need to be scraped and, fresh coat of paint put on it. That might take a little more. But again, I think if there's someone that wants that done, and maybe I can buy the paint, but I can't physically do that work, we probably could find someone in our community that would help out with that.
I'm thinking of myself going, it would probably help if we would put the cover back on the Traeger when we're done. Because we just have it thrown off to the side.
Yeah. Well, and
If you ever put a cover on a Traeger, you understand.
Yeah,
Why
absolutely.
it's off to the side.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and I even said from the storm last year, CDC had an exterior outlet cover that was broken. My husband and I own a hardware store. I know how to change those. I did it last week. I said I couldn't believe what a difference that made when I pulled up and didn't see that. Because of course, after you notice it every time you pull up. I stared at that broken cover.
So instead of saying, wish somebody would fix that,
I fixed it.
you fixed it, good for you.
And it was that simple. I went and bought one, unscrewed the broken one, screwed the new one in, and it made me feel better. And it's like, why hadn't I done that sooner? So again, these are not always really big things. Very simple, minor things can make a huge difference. Okay, so I said paint and doors, doors and trim. Obviously, there are some bigger things. As we've seen the transformation in people's houses, changing the color of their house, I can't believe, just the way a neighborhood has changed. All of the houses, I grew up in Cozad, so some of these houses I've seen for a lot of years that have been the same. The same tan house on this corner is now blue.
Yeah.
My landmarks that I would tell someone, because you don't remember every street in Cozad, but I know where every person lived or what street to turn on based on these landmarks in our community, and those things have changed. So the tan house is no longer tan, it's gray or it's blue, or, and that's been fun to watch that transformation. And I will tell you, it's really changing what some of these neighbors, are seeing from one another and what they're actually looking alike. So I think that we'll hopefully continue to see that, because all of these things, if my neighbor is cleaning up their property, there's usually a motivation for me to do the same thing. Now, again, some of this has been timing. Some of them are still waiting on people to come, windows to come, that kind of thing. It's not that they're not doing it. This is a process to get through, but it is very, very exciting to see the transformation. So this is one of Jeff Sigler's, Revitalize or Die is his handle on Instagram and Facebook. Engagement comes after a community has improved, not before. Stop seeking consensus to make things better and just make things better. One of the things that he had in his presentation was litter and libations. So I came back and said, we're gonna do that. He said, why are we trying to get approval to go pick up trash in a park? We can go pick up trash in a park anytime we want to. Why do we think we need to have a meeting, go get approval, have another meeting about it, and then go do it? Go do it. So
That makes me think of the, was it the Methodist youth group?
yes,
They went over to the park.
they went to Muni Park.
They did a great job.
They did an amazing job. So they spent the day as an organization. They edged around the track. They picked up trash, broken limbs. They raked the sand under the playground structures.
To get all this stuff.
Yeah, all that.
Yeah, and talk about not my job.
Yeah,
but when are they gonna do something about this?
absolutely. They went
I
and
was just
did it.
really impressed with the youth group.
It was exceptional. And that's exactly what we should be encouraging more people to do.
Just
So
do it.
just do it. Just do it. Okay. So I don't know why this
So the quote is.
quote came out of there. Few little tweaks, and my quote was in white when it was up inside of there. But it says, simply put, every effort put towards cute improvements improves a place, excuse me. Every effort put towards cute improves a place. Each hour spent making a community cuter is an hour that contributes to making that place more lovable, easier for people to grow an attachment to, and ultimately makes the place stronger. This is where we should be spending our volunteer time and how we should be engaging with residents. When someone asks how they can get involved, don't send them to a meeting and ask them to join a committee. Just let them know the best way they can help their town is by making it just a little bit cuter. So again, these are simple things. We shouldn't be asking everyone to come to a meeting to talk about it. If there's something they want to do, like the Methodist youth group did, go let them do it. Don't stand in their way. And when someone does it, this is the other thing that I think we need to do a better job of.
Applaud.
One, we need to applaud them, tell them thank you, and encourage anyone else to do the same. Because that's the way it's going to get done, right? And we know that even in our own houses, right? If I need to vacuum, talking about it.
Please don't wait for me to come over to your house and vacuum for you.
Right? I'm just going to have to do it. Right? That's the only way it's getting done. So just do it. Okay? Back to the old Nike saying, just do it. Okay, curb appeal and civic pride, a powerful connection. There is a strong connection between curb appeal and civic pride. It's well documented across community development, urban design, and psychological research. And again, there were, I don't know where.
I don't know if it was, maybe it was just me uploading it to Google Drive.
Maybe there's some missing elements, but again, it's back to the
We're still
same thing.
chatting about it.
Absolutely. And I think people feel better about the places they live when they're involved in what's going on, when they can see they're making a difference. And what I want to point out to everybody is we are all making a difference by the choices that we make and the things that we do. So again, even if it's in your own yard, making it look the best that it can helps the rest of your community. So it doesn't have to always be big and grandiose and this other thing over here. Let's stop worrying about all those other things and at least focus on the things that we're in control of and can control and make our best efforts there. Okay. Yeah, we've lost a few things in this, but that's okay. Visual identity reflects community values. And again, those are in clean, well-maintained homes, streets, storefronts. And again, it's that message, we care about this place. And that care and concern goes back to that civic pride, and that's when these things come together. Curb appeal becomes a visual representation of local pride, standards, and hospitality. Again, if you go into a place that's a little bit darker, disheveled, might not feel quite as welcoming as a place that is bright, clean, and again, being greeted with a smile. Beautification builds ownership and responsibility. Again, this just goes back to the they, the them, who's gonna do this? What can we do? What can we do, okay? And I think the more we work on everyone believing they live in a good place, the happier they will be living in this place, right? And I don't care where that is, what community you live in. I always say if someone's really negative and, you know, this place is horrible, whatever, then why do you live here? That's a choice. Go to somewhere that brings you joy. life's too short for us not to be joyful and have some happiness. So if there are things in your environment that are affecting that, can we change that? And it might simply be just that. Okay. Shared aesthetic, shared identity. And I will say there are both sides to this equation, and some people will feel strongly about why you should or shouldn't do some of these, but I'm gonna tell you. Streetscapes, planters, signage and murals, historic facades become symbols of local culture and history, okay? Again, we've all seen the house that doesn't fit in the neighborhood, right? Whether that's the only house that hasn't been improved, everything else has, and you've got this one that needs to be, maybe every other building downtown is a traditional brick facade from a certain area. You've been to those communities where you can see the aesthetic in a business district. And you've also seen the one that doesn't fit. And that's what we're trying to get, to make sure everything is harmonious. I don't say that everything has to be exactly the same, identical, but there should be harmony in your neighborhood. There should be harmony in your downtown district. I think it can still have personality.
I'm laughing because I can't remember the name. It's a small town out in western Nebraska, and it's a bar, and they painted it bright pink. So talk about doesn't fit in with the aesthetic at all.
Right?
But it's definitely an attention grabber,
Yep.
and people know
That's the place.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the place for you to go.
And that's okay if that's then the identity that they take on as a community and they're okay with it. You know, I think
Well,
that
my question is, so what happens if somebody thinks outside the box of shared aesthetic?
and I think that's okay. I just think that, you know, there are certain standards, and I'll use Cozad Development. In this housing subdivision that we have, there are some restrictive covenants. Certain things can't happen in that neighborhood.
I didn't know that. Like,
Yes, there are a few, I think there are 4 neighborhoods in Cozad that have restrictive
oh,
covenants.
didn't know that at all. Can you tell us
Yes.
about that?
So, like, in that particular neighborhood, you cannot put a mobile home.
Okay.
It does not fit within the covenants. You can have an exterior or a detached garage, but it has to be the same aesthetic as the house.
Okay.
There are the fencing. There are parameters in terms of how tall your fence can be, where your fence can be placed in relation.
So that's
to your
totally
property.
different than just the city zoning
Yes.
ordinances. Okay.
Yes, these are in addition
Okay.
to those. And like I said, there are a few neighborhoods that have those covenants.
Gosh, how would people find out about if they were looking at moving into?
So if they were looking at those homes, the realtors know it, that this is a neighborhood that has restrictive covenants.
Is that the same of, like, you said there's 3 other neighborhoods?
I think there's 3 other neighborhoods besides that one that have them. And some of them are about, you know.
Or is that something like, if I lived in one of those neighborhoods and I wanted to change, I went down to the city office to get a building permit, they would tell me at that
Yes, they
point
would.
that you
Yeah,
are.
But when you buy it, like, because they're filed with the Register of Deeds, you get a copy of them, you get a notice
I
of
just
them.
didn't know, you know,
And-
if maybe there's been people living there for a long time and they don't even know, or maybe they don't remember that.
Right, yeah, sometimes that happens where they don't remember. But yes, if they were to go get a building permit, they
All right,
would
I just
say,
learned something
this does
today.
not fit your restrictive covenants. And so we see that even in our small community, you see it a lot more in larger
Yeah, like
communities.
urban developments, a lot of
Yes.
times you'll see that.
You know, they'll have
They've got to
a
have-
Williamsburg district or whatever, and it
Right,
fits
you have to have,
this
your
aesthetic.
house has to be a certain paint color,
Yes.
type of thing.
Yes, and so, you know, I'm not saying that that's what we have to go to everywhere, but I do think there's a reason behind that, you know, and they're trying to create something that maybe stands out in a different way and it might be because of the harmony. And I've also seen very colorful districts, and it stands out because they're all very colorful.
Yeah, I mean, you
You
think
know.
of like the Victorian homes in San
Yes.
Francisco, or the French Quarter.
Yes.
in
New Orleans. Mhm.
You know, different, I think is it Finland, maybe, they have very brightly colored houses down by the wharf, so.
Yeah. And so in certain areas, they're not gonna let you put a traditional house in the middle of the French Quarter, tear down one of those historic buildings. You know, I'm certain there's probably some covenants that would, restrict that. So some of those things are there, one, whether that's to maybe keep that history alive in those areas. And maybe it's about something that's new and different that they want to keep new and different. I don't know. Okay. Oh,
I think if you jiggle it, it should be okay. There we go.
okay. Yeah, this is really weird. Like my screen doesn't look like this. Okay. A community with strong curb appeal is more likely to be seen as vibrant, welcoming, forward-thinking by tourists, investors, and new residents. So again, this isn't always just about us. It's about those that we want to welcome into our community. If we want to see our community grow, we want that best foot forward always. We want to boost our reputation and that external perception of who we are. Outside validation reinforces internal pride, helping a community feel valued and competitive. And I'll ask the two of you, because I know it's happened to me, when someone's come into our community and they said, oh my gosh, you have such a lovely community. I can't believe how vibrant your downtown is, or we went to this park or that, or, you know, whatever it was that they were here for, and they were so complimentary. It instantly, like, yes, it is. This is why I love this place. You know, it makes you feel better to hear those types of comments. So again, what can we do that's what we're getting as feedback from others?
I always get a kick out of when people come into the library for the first time, and they're just, this is a beautiful library.
And
thank you.
And sometimes,
not that I had anything to do with it, but thank you.
right, but sometimes they are surprised that a smaller rural community can have the amenities that we have the beautiful things that we have. And here's what I'm here to tell you, we deserve all of these things.
Well, I've even had though people, I hate to say this, but people from Cozad.
Yes.
And I hate to say it because the library is almost 30 years old and they haven't been into this library.
Right.
They were in the old library.
Yes.
So they come in and say, wow, this is, welcome to the library.
Right. And hopefully they left with a little bit sense of pride.
Yeah.
My community has this amazing resource. You know, shame on me for not having been in here before, but you know, hopefully that's what they leave with, that they themselves, not that they're an outsider, but they were for the time period because they hadn't been in.
It's not just the library. I mean, really, if you can make yourself, I don't want to say make yourself, but go visit businesses that maybe you've never been into.
Yes.
Or restaurants you've never gone to before. Same thing, just elevate your sense of pride.
Absolutely, because I think we have so many great things to offer the people that live here.
Yeah.
And
it's kind of like me the first time I went to the school after it got redone.
yes.
Wow.
Yeah, isn't it? I mean, it's spectacular.
Yeah.
Yeah. How awesome is that? And I'm excited for the children of our community that's where they get to go to school. So, okay. So what I want to ask, we need to come out of here with some actionable things, because we did bring you to a meeting.
Yeah.
We are having a little discussion, but what can we take?
Not a meeting, it's a chat.
Let's chat. And we're gonna chat about what we can do next. So would you participate if we hosted a curb appeal contest? Like whether for a business or in a residence? Is that something?
Well, honestly, when you were talking, like, I know, and I don't know if they still do it, like there used to be a gardening club that would put like yard of the month or whatever.
Yes.
But it's like, even your I love Cozad period, could you get signs? And I know I'm asking and not just doing, but,
Well,
to say, hey, we noticed you've made some improvements.
So one of Jeff Sigler's ideas in his presentation, they had a group that they had door hangers. These ladies would go out and walk, like they had a Walk Wednesday kind of group, and they would walk neighborhoods. And if they saw something like, oh, Susie painted, whatever, they would hang the door hanger on that say, I love, what you've done with the place, or I noticed, or whatever it was that it said.
That's awesome.
But it was a way, one, they were engaging people together to be out doing something physically together, but then also noticing and acknowledging and then complimenting whatever great thing just happened in that particular neighborhood that they walked in. It can be that simple. And yes, we can make door hangers to do something like that. So those are things that, yes. Okay, cleanup day. Again, I threw out the litter and libations. So obviously I'm not saying we could pick up the litter in a park and then drink there because that would be against the law. We would not do that. But could you get a group of your friends to go together? Let's go pick up trash at the community park and then we'll go down to the tap house after we're done and have a drink or
That's usually what happens when I'm doing mulch around the library.
Yes.
Somebody helps me and say, can I please buy you a drink?
Yeah.
Thank you so much for helping me out.
Absolutely. So, are those things that we could get others engaged in and helping out? Because I do think there are more people out there, if they are asked, they would help. They would help mulch at the library. We have also talked about a community potluck. Like, could we set up a row of picnic tables and ask everyone to come? Doesn't matter who you are, what you do, would you come and participate?
You and I have already talked about this, setting up tables down Meridian.
Yes, I just think it would be fun. We've got to get back to that, being neighborly, knowing who one another are. People do move in and out of communities and move to different neighborhoods. And I can't believe, since my children have graduated high school, how fast I became disconnected from all of those kids when I could go to a basketball game and know every kid that was on the court. And now I have to look through, do I know their mom and dad, or who is this kid? Where did they move from, or whatever? Like, it just happens quickly. So that same thing happens in neighborhoods. When people move in and out, and if we're not going over and introducing ourselves and welcoming them, they don't know us either. Like, I don't know them, they don't know me. So how do we go about changing that? And I think opportunities to bring people together in a more casual way might help, and then might also start that conversation if there is a neighbor that is having a struggle that they need some help with and don't know who to go to. Let's help them.
I think about, and you grew up about the same time I did. My neighborhood had, like, if you were in a house that was willing to help, you had a little hand print in the window. And so you just knew if you were walking through that neighborhood, if you needed help, you could go to that door and knock on it, whether it was a safety issue or anything else, that they would be willing to help.
And there have been different times where there have been certain light bulbs or certain things that have meant that, or there were those little lights that you could put in the window, better operating lights. I think people did that too for the same reason. And so, yes, I think we need to get back to some of those simpler ways. And again, what do all of those things do for us? If we're doing all of these things, guess what happens next? I love Cozad, period. Like, you start to love where you live because of all of these things that are impacting who you are as a person. So we get back to that psychological side of all of this. Yes, I want to do this because maybe it helps us grow our community and attract a new business here or attract new residents. But I also want everyone that lives here to love it here, because we need people to be happier, healthier, and always to know that they're enough and they're worth it. We've had tragic things that have happened in our community because of mental health and things that have gone on. And again, let's talk about the bigger picture. Does the crappy paint on the outside of this house mean everything? No, but if I go and help them, making them feel better about who they are, where they live, their outlook on life, maybe we make a difference in a way that is far more important.
Now, when you say that, and people watching this, how can they get involved? Some admission to Cozad is coming.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a great opportunity for people of all ages to get involved, just to
Yes.
help neighborhoods, help those people who might not be able to
Right.
do it by themselves.
And I want people not to feel bad about reaching out for help.
Now, but I know who used to be in charge of it a couple of years ago. Do the Association of Cozad Churches, are they
I
kind of?
still think that they facilitate that. I don't know who the individual leaders are for that. I could certainly look and find that out for you, Lori.
Yeah.
Because I don't know specifically anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I know
But
the
it is
focus,
key.
the focus used to always be for youth
Mhm.
as a service to the community,
Yes.
but I don't think it has to be
No,
just youth.
no. And like I said, if you belong to an organization and, engage them, say, would you be willing to go pick up trash in Candy Park today? Or whatever day, and just go do it.
Yeah.
But what I want to say, not that it's always about the acknowledgement of that,
Right.
but I do think we need to celebrate it so that we can encourage others to do the same and let them know that it can be just that easy. It doesn't have to be elaborate or involved. I'm gonna give a shout out to Claude Barrickman. If you guys know who he is, he walks from his office to the post office. And if you've ever watched him on his walk, if there's trash in his way, he's picking it up.
Yeah.
He cares about his community, and that shows to me every single time. Even if he sees something rolling on the other side of the street, he'll walk to the other side of the street and get it picked up. He makes a difference every day in the small things that he's doing, and that is a big deal. If more of us were doing that, we're making a difference in, again, very small ways. And I think it still then comes back to, does that make me feel good about me and my community? Absolutely it does. And it was free, didn't cost anything. So I think that we don't have to look at one that we can't, then let's find a way to
Yeah,
use.
and that leads me to another thought of, there's a story out there, and it can be extrapolated onto this, I think, about small things lead to bigger things. And it's about a man at the ocean's edge throwing starfish back into the ocean. And somebody approaches him because the whole beach all the way up is covered in starfish. And they're like, you're never gonna get all of this. Why do you even bother? And as he's throwing another one, he goes, well, it mattered to that one.
Absolutely.
So, when you talk about something small, it matters there.
Yeah.
All right, maybe you might not be able to do everything, but you can do something.
Mm-hmm. And that's where it has to start. Do something.
Mhm.
And if you look at your own things and you do that, I think it will start that, oh, I could help so-and-so. Or as you're talking with your friend, I really need to do this. And maybe that's a daunting task to them. I'll help you. If we start doing that for one another, we create better relationships with one another, and then we inadvertently start to create more community pride. We're doing things that matter. And how do we get more people to I Love Cozad, period? Right? And this could be, and this is what Jeff Sigler is talking about. This doesn't matter what community you live in. You should love where you live. You should be making a difference, and stop worrying about the they, the them, whoever else is gonna fix this thing for me. We should be doing that. Right?
Jose, you've been pretty quiet.
I just didn't want to ruin your momentum or anything, but This is the first time I'm hearing about I Love Cozad, period, and I think it's really amazing to introduce this for the community. And obviously you're using the library as a platform to further promote it. I'm curious to know if you've done that with other businesses already, or if there are any long-term goals to, promote this more in the upcoming weeks or so.
Yeah, so we have actually been out and talked to a few other civic groups.
Okay.
We had stickers made that look like this I Love Cozad.
Okay.
I should have brought my cup. I have a sticker on the side of it. that
You
says,
have
"I
note
love Cozad."
cards, because I've sent thank yous to
Yes.
people.
We made note cards, and we've been passing these out. We had the 4th grade class this year for the Cozad Development's annual meeting. I made I Love Cozad placemats that said I love Cozad because, and we let the 4th graders tell us why they loved their community.
Where they loved, who they loved.
Yeah, they ran the gamut.
Yeah.
Some of them were businesses that they loved. Some of it was the parks that they loved. Some of it was, I love how helpful the community is. I mean, there were so many different things. And so then we gave those out to the like if it was a business, we gave them those placemats because they need to be reminded that it isn't just us adults that, have a perspective of our community and of their community. These kiddos do too.
Mm-hmm.
And I would venture a guess if we went even to the preschool kids or, they're all gonna have some connection to the community. And some of them was their family. Some of them wrote, I love Cozad because my family lives here, or, whatever it was. But there were several of them that had a connection to something else that's offered in this community that was a reason why they loved it here.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it, there were a few kids that wrote, it was the school. That was a place that they felt safe and comfortable. And those are really important things, and we need to be reminded of that, that it isn't always something bigger than it is.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it gets back to why those little things matter. And again, this is about what we're doing when no one's watching. And it might be these littles that are watching us.
Well, and you think it's reciprocal too, right?
Absolutely.
You want people to love their city, but you also need the city to love them back.
Yes. And I think when we talk about the city, some people will only think that we're talking about the city council, the city employees, the
But
whatever.
there's parks in the library and
There's all sorts of things. And you live in this city. So that city includes,
community.
yes.
Right.
You think about the community groups that we're involved in. That's Cozad, So I just think that we have to be mindful of those impacts. And yeah, we've got to continue to share this message. We have this I Love Cozad on our Cozad Development website. The chamber has used this. Like I said, we have stickers that we've handed out. I think we're almost out of those, so we're gonna reorder them because they have been very popular. You'll see there's a few cars that have the I Love Cozad period stickers on them. I think there's a couple maybe city vehicles that have them too.
Do you have any window clings?
I know Waypoint Bank has one on their drive-through window, so they made theirs a window clean. Like I said, I'm a Yeti girl like you, and mine, I Love Cozad, is on my coffee mug, so that every time I'm using that, if someone comes into my office, they too see I Love Cozad. And so, yeah, we are trying to spread that messaging. CDC hosted 2 meetings where we showed the presentation by Jeff Sigler.
Oh, okay.
And allowed others to be able to hear that same message. Because again, sometimes when you're hearing it from someone outside of your community, people have a tendency to
Might be more impactful.
more impactful, absolutely. And then I will tell you, we are hopeful. We applied for another grant to do some additional work with Jeff Sigler in our community. Now, whether we will be chosen or not, I think there are things that we wrote in that grant application that we will move forward with because
Well,
we
I
think
think
it's important.
I think of this too, and I think the CDC did this
a while ago, they did little micro grants,
Mm-hmm.
like things you can do for the community. To me,
Yes.
that would be like a micro grant.
Yes. And-
Plaster that all over.
Yeah, and we need to continue to find more ways to spread this messaging, share it with others, and encourage others. So I guess that's my challenge to anyone that listens today, to those of us in the room, that we're always looking for ways that we can make a difference, big or small.
Yeah, my takeaway is, and you and I talked at length about this, but it's always just nice to be reminded that you gotta do.
Yeah, Yep.
You can talk, we can talk forever.
absolutely. But what are our action items? How do we do that?
Yeah.
And I think we've all done it where we've gotten in our own way, trying to plan, or whatever, or even just sometimes come up with excuses
Yeah.
at the end of the day why we don't do something when,
Well, I don't like weeding. I don't like to weed.
Yeah.
Does anybody like to weed? But you just gotta do it.
right, and when you do it,
It looks not very nice.
yes.
I think it looks great out there.
Absolutely. I know I did a few of the beds downtown. We did them and put mulch in them, and I'm like, yes, it looks so much better,
Yeah.
And so doing it made me feel better, made my community look better, and we just have to spend more time doing that.
Other questions you have to say?
Going back to
It's been
the,
an hour already. We've been talking about this. for
oh, it
hours.
has, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, I didn't either, not paying attention to time.
Going back to what you mentioned earlier about that grant
Mhm.
application, do you have a good timeline of when you might know if you get accepted or not?
I'll be honest, I don't know the timeline of that.
Mhm.
Jen was the one that submitted that application, so I can't tell you if they had an award date that they had set.
Gotcha.
I know it was a shorter timeline, but I honestly, I can't give you that full date, but if that's something you're interested in, I certainly can
Yeah,
ask her and get that to you.
yeah, absolutely. Any kind of information would be appreciated. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Well, like I said, I think, I'm hopeful. I think the things that she included and things that we wanted to accomplish out of that in ways to increase community pride and
Mhm.
engagement. Like I said, even if we weren't funded or part of that group, I think there are some things that we will be doing in the next 6 months that will.
Yeah, sometimes those grants, even if you don't get them, they give you enough, maybe some resources. Even
Yes.
If you don't get the grant, you can have access to the resources.
Yeah. Well, and I think just the thought process
Yeah.
behind what do you want to accomplish was like, again, we could accomplish this.
Right,
you know?
well, you go back to, you gotta invest in yourself, so.
Yes,
Okay, nobody has that money, but we wanna do this, so.
Right.
How can we do this?
and so I think that we will see some things come out of that as well, and I think that our board has seen the positive impacts that just this I Love Cozad campaign that we started
Mhm.
has had, and the conversations that have come of that. And, we're lucky, our board has offered us time to invest in the community. We cleaned the welcome garden
Yeah.
at the bottom of the overpass. Jen, Bonnie Hubbard, and myself, they gave us the time to do that. My board Cozad Development Corporation owns the Tenneco site. We've had several work days out there to try to clean that up.
Yeah, it seems like I always find out those things after the fact. So is there a good way to know about when you do something like that? I mean, do you put that ahead of time on social media or?
That one, because we were asking the board to do it, we
It was
didn't,
an
but
in-house thing.
yeah. But yes, I think there's opportunities where we should be saying,
Yeah,
Here's
well, I
something
mean,
that can be
like
done,
when I
can
was
we
saying
do
about
it?
mulch,
yes,
who on my board can do this, but it's like, man, if I opened that up to the community and my library lovers would come, it would be even faster work.
absolutely. And I just really want to encourage you to do that. Put it out there, see what happens. Because I think we will be surprised that there will be people that show up.
Yeah.
And I think we just sometimes stop asking. And,
Sure.
and again, I think by doing so, we take away some engagement people could have in their community and a way for us to help them build some community pride. Like, I did that. I helped clean up. I would love to have a conversation with some of the kids that helped at the Muni Park clean up from the church, because I bet they have kept an eye on that or have a sense of pride. to what's
Well,
going
right
on
there,
in
you
that.
hit it. Once you invest yourself in something, you probably do keep a little closer eye on that. Like, I spent 4 hours of my time cleaning that up.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go pick up that bottle of water that somebody threw out there.
yes, absolutely. And so I think that's really important. And obviously, as a community, we want our kiddos to want to come back here. And so that engagement, that community pride, the earlier we work to instill that in them, the more connection they'll have to our community and the desire to see it
Well,
succeed.
and what you said, I loved what you said about joy. You know, it's a choice that you've made.
Yeah.
To live here, so try to be joyful in it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love watching, I see on your Facebook posts and your hashtag grateful
Yeah,
on every day. I think you put that, and that, even that makes me feel differently when I see that. And it's a reminder, we should be grateful. And again, you're taking advantage of some beautiful scenery that
yeah.
you're getting to see that exists in our community and are grateful for it. And I think that's important. And again, that acknowledgement,
Thanks.
I appreciate it.
Just gives me a little bit of time to take a breather before the day starts.
Yeah,
And then the next day, do it again.
that's right. And sometimes that's what we have to do.
Yep. Well, Robyn, thank you so much
Yes.
for coming today. I'm sorry that didn't
No.
all necessarily work out, but I think we still learned a lot.
We did, yeah, I agree.
Good.
For those who are watching, we are gonna have another community chat on the 23rd of this month. Troy Franzen with the Board of Public Works is gonna come talk about backflow. There are gonna be postcards going out to the Cozad community about that and the importance of knowing what's gonna be happening. Like I told my husband, just make sure your toilet seats are down.
Okay, that's good to know.
So, with that said, we will end this.